Hey there, this is Noah Learner. I wanted to build a companion video to kind of set the foundation for you to be able to build your Google Search Console data pipeline. There are a lot of things that we didn't go over in the main video, which are how to set up a Google Cloud project, how to set up the actual tables that you're going to use to save your data from into the pipeline. We also didn't go over how to set up a service account. We also didn't go over how to set up VS Code, which is our code editing tool of choice, in order to be able to push content from your home computer up to Google Cloud. So we're going to go over a lot of those things, and it's going to take a couple different videos to do that. The first video is going to focus mainly on setting up Google Cloud and setting up BigQuery to get ready. And then the second video is going to go into the VS Code side of things. Alrighty, so the first thing that we need to do is create an account if you don't have one already for Google Cloud. And if you do, you're just going to log in. And once you're logged in, we're going to make a new project. I'll show you how to do that. First thing we do is we sign in. And you'll have to pick an account that's already a quote-unquote Google account, and that doesn't have to be Gmail. It just has to be an account that you've OAuthed into Google in the past. So I'm going to pick a user, going to sign in, and then I click this link up here to go to the console. And once I'm in, it's going to take me to a project that's already built, and that's fine. But what we're going to do is click this button up here, create a new project. We have to give it a name. I'll go lowercase just because it's kind of best conventions to use lowercase inside the cloud. Hit create. And it'll take a minute for it to create. And then we're going to do a whole host of things. The first thing that we're going to do now that we've built our project is we're going to go into the API section of that project, and we need to switch over to our new project actually from another one. And once we're in it, nothing's turned on. We don't have any APIs turned on, we don't have any service accounts, we don't have anything going. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go click this, and we'll go down here to the API section. And we're going to turn on a whole host of different APIs. Okay, so we just built our project called GSC-pipeline. Next we would have gone over to this APIs tab. And when you do that, you'll come to this screen. And at this point, we can see that we have a whole host of APIs already turned on, a lot of which we'll be using, including, most importantly, the BigQuery API, which is enabled right there. We're going to turn on a whole host of others. We're going to start with Cloud Tasks. And then we're going to go to this screen, at which point we hit Enable. It's going to tell us that billing needs to be turned on, and so we're going to enable billing. And at this point we need to pick a billing account and set account, at which point it will turn billing on. And then we'll get a notification that our API is turned on in a moment. So we know that Cloud Tasks is turned on. I'm going to put a check in my little book. The next one that we're going to do is Google Search Console, which I think is Webmasters. Search. I think it's going to be Search Console API. I think it's this API Legacy one, which is the one we need to pick. This is what will give us access to the search data. There's another API which is similar, but it's not exactly what we need, and I'll show you that just because it's a little bit Search Console Explorer, Google Search Console. And the reason why this one doesn't work is this helps you run validation tests against your website, and that's not what we need for this process. Okay, so the next API we're going to turn on is Cloud Functions. After we do our cloud tasks, the next step is to do Cloud Functions. So we go Cloud Functions API, and it looks like it's already turned on, which is awesome. The next one that we need to do is Cloud Logging. I need to make sure that Cloud Logging is turned on. Looks like that's already turned on, which is great. Next, I'm going to check and make sure that Cloud Build is turned on. That's like to build something. And the reason we need that is that API is what's necessary to push our code from our local environments on our computer up into Google Cloud projects. And this is a great way to work, is to work locally with the tools that you're comfortable with. And for us, that's VS Code, and then to be able to push it live up into our Google Cloud project. And the next API that we're going to turn on is going to be to make sure that PubSub is turned on. And we're really doing this in case you use PubSub down the road, and it looks like it's already turned on. So we already have almost everything. The last one that we need to turn on is Cloud Scheduler. And the reason that we're going to use this API is that this allows us to set cron jobs in the Google Cloud Project environment. And the thing that's really neat to know is that you get up to three free cron jobs that run per month. And what that means is that you could have a cron job that runs once every single hour, and that would count as one. But if you had 3 separate cron jobs that trigger 3 different events, you know, those count as 3. And above that 3 threshold, I believe that they cost 10 cents a piece per month. Okay, so now that we've turned on Cloud Scheduler API, the next step is going to be setting up the OAuth consent screen. And that's a must with any of these projects. So if we go APIs and Services, OAuth consent screen. So you'll notice here it says internal or external, and we're only choosing an internal application. This is only going to be used by people and service accounts inside of our organization. And that's something to be aware of. If you need to make it external, meaning you have external resources that need access to it, that's a whole different ball of wax that'll take longer to get verified with Google's team. Whereas if you keep it as an internal account, there isn't any verification process necessary. So you go internal, create, and then we're going to have a couple screens of stuff that we need to fill out. GSC pipeline. You're going to put your email there. If you have a logo, add it. I think it's a must, actually. I think it's required. And so I had, I'm going to add something for fun here, which I know is the right size. It's 120 pixels by 120 pixels. I'm going to add my email there because I think I need to put the support email. Click Save and Continue. And then here is where we need to add a variety of scopes. And these are the different API scopes that we're giving this application the ability to use. And so bear with me for a second because there's a whole bunch of them. Only scopes for enabled APIs are listed below. So I'm going to add all of our different APIs. I'm going to just make this all of them so that I can see everything. And I don't think you need access to all of these, but it's an internal application, which means that people outside the domain aren't going to be able to use it. So there isn't a massive downside to enabling more of these than you actually need. And I'm turning on some extra ones. You'll see that like I'm turning on logging, I'm turning on monitoring tools. This is for down the road. If you want to set up monitoring alerts inside your cloud project, you'll already be set up for that. And I'm basically turning them all on. You'll notice I'm turning on Search Console here, Webmasters 2, and then I'm going to hit Update, and then Save and Continue. And I go back to the dashboard, and I now have a setup OAuth consent screen. Olé! Very, very exciting. And then lastly, we're going to create a service account. And to do that, we click over here. Hey, do you see how I have all these cool things that I use all the time at the top? Here's a little trick that I think you'll find useful. You can always scroll down to something that you like and you can pin it. And when you do that, it'll stay up at the top. And I actually don't use Kubernetes engine yet, so I'm going to unpin that. Okay, so we've just built our OAuth screen. The next step, okie dokie. So I think we hit credentials and then create credentials, and we're going to go service account. And we're going to call this robot. Why not, right? It's kind of fun. Robot. We're going to hit create. And we're going to add a lot of different rules at this point that give it the ability to do all the stuff that we're going to need for this project. The first thing we're going to do is go to BigQuery admin. And what you're going to find probably is that the amount of permissions that I'm giving these different roles is probably too broad, meaning that there might be security risks associated with that, but over time you can change the permissions to make them more and more restrictive. This was me working in MVP or proof of concept land. So BigQuery admin, we're going to add some more roles to this. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I want to go, how do I go back? I'm going to give Noah access to this role. Noah at 2 Octobers. So I would add your email to that, hit done. It looks like it didn't let me go back at that point, so I need to add the different roles to the service account that's being generated right now. So we're going to find robot, and then we need to add credentials to it. After your role is built, after your service account is built, you click this IAM tab, and then you'll see a dashboard like this that will include the service account that you just created. In order to add the different roles to it, you click this pencil icon, and at this point we're going to go through all of the different roles that we need to add. The first one is already added, which is BigQuery admin. We're next going to choose Cloud Functions, and for that we're going to choose Cloud Functions admin. We're also going to select Cloud Scheduler, which you're not going to see being used inside the how to build a data Search Console data pipeline video, but the reason that I'm including it is so that once you get your pipeline set up, you're going to need this permission in order to set it up to run every night. And so I'm just teaching you how to do that now. And then we also need to be a logging admin so that we can see what's our service account can see things. Oops, did I miss it? Logging admin. And then this person also needs to be a project owner. Okay, so we go save. Now our service account is created with all the permissions that's necessary for Google Cloud. We also have our project built. We've enabled all the APIs, and we should be good to go. Now, so you're excited about this. The next thing that you'll need to do is to go to your credentials screen, and to get there, we go back to APIs and services, credentials. We find our service account, which is this robot one. And then from here, we need to add a key. And we need it to be JSON recommended, and we'll click create. And you'll notice that it downloaded this file. And what's neat about this is it has a whole host of different things. You'll see that it has type equals service account. You'll see the project ID that it's associated with. You'll also see the project key ID. You'll have a super long string at this private key level. The client email for the service account, the client ID number, auth URI, token URI, auth provider, client. Now, when you see me build the script throughout the videos, this file that you've just downloaded is what sits inside the creds.json file. And so this is how we're authenticating every time our Node application is trying to interact with both the BigQuery APIs and the Google Search Console. Okay, so we've just set up our cloud project, we've built our OAuth consent screen, we've created our service account, we've turned on a bunch of different APIs. The next thing we need to do is set up BigQuery for success. To do that, you click your menu up here in the top left, click BigQuery, it'll open up a screen that looks like this. If you've got a whole bunch of different projects, you'll see them stacked over here on the left. And for us, we have this GSC pipeline. We're going to click that, and we're going to make a new data set. And based on how I've set up my project, I know that I want to call it GSC. I want it to go into the default location. But for me, I'm just checking to make sure that it is what it is. And we're going to stick with default, which is the US Central 1. I don't want my tables to expire. I want Google to manage the encryption key. I hit create dataset. Woohoo! Very exciting. We now have a dataset which is going to house our different tables. The way that we're setting up our pipeline is that we're going to have one table per client. And some agencies will use one big table for all of their clients. I like the structure of having everyone inside their own table. I like having a one client per table structure because we're going to find perhaps that our querying costs are lower if the queries are segmented by client. And it's also easy to remove their data if our engagement ends with that client. So to do that, we're going to do two things. We're going to set up a skeleton table, and we're going to use this skeleton table to duplicate every time we want to add a new client into our stable of clients. So we click the data set, which is GSC, and we click create table. And building this, what's called schema, or the structure of our table, is pretty simple. We're going to add a bunch of different fields to do that. The first one we're going to add is going to be called date. And here's something to know when you're building your table names. and your data set names. If you have multiple words, make sure that they're separated by underscores and not dashes. There's a number of reasons why. Historically, you just couldn't add dashes, but now you can, and it's a problem because when you make API calls to tables and data sets that have dashes and not underscores in them, it's going to be a problem. You'll notice that the API sometimes will crash. So make sure you're using underscores. Okay, so we're going to name our table skeleton. And I'm just doing that because every time I want to copy a table, it's nice to have a name that makes sense. I could also use it, like I could go AA skeleton so that that table name would always be at the top. And I could go add field. And the first one we're going to add is date. And this needs to be a date type. The next field that we're going to add is going to be URL. And that should be a string type. Next one is going to be query, and that is also string type. Now, in our video, these are the three dimensions that we're pulling in, which are date, URL, and query. So just clicks, and these are going to be an integer. You can't have a partial click, right? You can only have round numbers. Same things with impressions. These are going to be integers as well. And then we can have click-through rate, CTR, which is going to be a float type because it's going to not be only round numbers. And the same thing with position. And we go add field. Great. And then you'll notice here that it says partition and cluster settings. And I have not leveraged clustering yet, although it's really a smart practice to do because it minimizes how much budget is used when queries run. I do partition by date though. Oh, position. Okay, so now that we've added the partition by date, we're going to make sure that by day is chosen. We then hit create table. And then if we go back over to our pipeline, our GSC data set, and we hit this down arrow, we're now going to see our template or skeleton file table. You'll notice that it says this is a partition table. This is a way that'll help you save a ton of budget each month because every time that your table is queried, it's going to use that date field to partition the query to use less data. The difference is that if you don't partition by date, every time you make a query on the data, it's going to look through all of the data. Whereas if you partition by date, it segments out those queries to only look at the dates that are involved. It's really cool. Okay, so let's say you now have your skeleton table and you want to start adding clients. So the way you do that is you select your skeleton table, hit copy table, and then you give it a name to match your client. And we're going to call it client A. And the pattern that I use is I'll name it after the website. So we'll just say domain 1, right? I notice that it's going into the correct project. I see that it's going into the correct data set. I can hit this advanced options just to show you, but we're not going to touch anything. We want that encryption managed by Google. And then what we're going to do is hit copy. And I now have my first client table built out. And if you select it, what's really cool is that now every time I'm creating a copy for my skeleton table, all of my copies are also partitioned, which is really sweet. And that is how you manage your tables.